Hey, welcome everybody to A Light Conversation with Sherry Kay and friends. Tonight's conversation is on nutrition and exercise and spirituality. But before we get started, I'd like to call in our guides. So I call in all of our guides, our angels, our ancestors. With love, honor, and respect, we ask that they be with us today through this transmission, through the information that we each converse with each other, and that may it be for our highest good and the highest good of the collective. We thank you, love you, honor, and respect you. Aho. Okay, so all of us are all on our own journeys. As a reminder, we have all of our own perspectives, and we welcome all perspectives here. Take what resonates, leave the rest behind. And so with that, we can just dive right in. So there's a lot of information that we can talk about tonight as far as the nutrition and exercise goes, and how that is involved in the spirituality, how it's a whole and not just a piece or something separate. And so one of the things when I started to think about talking about nutrition, diet in general, as far as spirituality, the first thing that came to my mind was, our body is our temple. We've heard that through religion or just through a saying or whatever. And truly, when a person thinks about it, we have this spirit, the soul that lives within this body, this avatar, this meat suit, whatever you want to call it. And how we treat our body is a big deal and a very big part of our spirituality. And so that would mean everything that we intake into our body, and then also how we treat our body, which would be movement and exercise, and it can expand from there. So that's why I wanted to talk about it tonight. It's something that's been near and dear to me since my awakening for about the last 3 years. I talked about a little bit earlier. When I first started to awaken, I really was connecting with nature. And as I was connecting with nature, Mother Earth, the animals, everything, I felt the need to maybe go off meat or meat products. And so I became a vegetarian. I thought, well, you know what? I can try it. And my diet had consisted of a high animal protein diet and low carb diet, mostly to control my weight. It was a good diet for me. It worked. And so I did that for a number of years with some side effects, because I did have a sick gallbladder that had to be removed because there was no saving it. And whether or not the high protein diet had something to do with it or not, I've heard that it can have something to do with it. And so that was just for me and my journey. That's what I did. But also, as I was, starting to awaken and get on this journey, I thought, I'm just going to try it, see if it's going to work for me. And so I did. I tried it, and I was on it for probably a good 6 or 8 months or so. And then I thought, well, you know what, if I'm doing this good, I can give up the dairy products. I can give up anything that had to do with animal byproducts, right? And so I can do vegan. And so I tried the vegan, and I did really well on it, and I liked it. But then I started traveling a number of months later, and it was really difficult for me to stay on a vegan diet while I'm traveling, because it wasn't always easy for me to find the kinds of foods that I wanted to incorporate in the diet that I was on, the nutrition that I was taking into my body. So that's when I thought, I'm not so strict with my body. I'm not going to judge myself so harshly or at all for needing to incorporate other foods within my diet. And so I went back to vegetarian and started eating that way. And that's where I'm at right now, is on a vegetarian diet. And I'd also like to just say, just to start off, there is no one diet or nutrition plan for all. We are each individuals. We each have our own bodies, and we need to eat accordingly and what resonates with our bodies, because not everyone is, can eat the same kind of foods that another person may be eating. And that's something that you just have to kind of get in tune to your own body and see what works for you. And then also too, I wanted to say, and no judgment, whether, it's judging others or yourself. There's no room for judgment, because that's not what we're here for. We're just here to explore the ideas of nutrition, how it is part of our spirituality, how it's part of our journey, our path, and not just nutrition, but also movement and exercise. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the diet and nutrition, just because it's probably a bigger, more, it just seems like it's always the little darkness in the room. I'm not sure exactly how to say that. But so just talking about the food. So I did want to just kind of mention all of that. So anything that we take in our body, that we ingest into our bodies, is going to affect our genetic structure, our energy field. Everything breaks down within the body, goes through our bloodstream, goes into every cell within our body. And so no matter what we intake, it does affect all of these things in our body, whether we know it or not. And a lot of times we do know it, because sometimes we will eat something that doesn't really resonate, and the next thing you know, your body's like spitting it out because it doesn't like it. It doesn't want it. Excuse me. And it's telling you. And so that's something that we can do is take a look at how it affects us. And that's a real, sometimes it's easy to figure that out. And sometimes it's takes a little bit more just being in tune with your own body. And you can do that in different ways, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit. Then also too, I just wanted to say, it's easy for us to talk about the no-nos or the don'ts, or the maybe the foods that aren't as easy on your body for whatever reason. Maybe they're even toxic to the body. And so I thought maybe we'd go through that a little bit, but then turn it around and say, okay, so what is good for the body, and why is it good for the body? If anyone wants to jump in at any time, please feel free. Just say, Sherry, I want to talk. Okay, so as far as the toxins that I wanted to talk about, so I listened to a couple of guru type masters that have been in Tibet, or have been in India, some very highly spiritual places where they did their training and their spiritual path, and then have brought it back, and they're sharing that with the general public. And they had some different foods on their list of things that we need to stay away from. And I think a little bit of it is a little bit controversial, but I would say, before I get started in naming these foods, I would say that, take what resonates, leave the rest, for sure. Try it, see how your body reacts, and see if it's something that to what they're saying. And just be in tune with your own body. Make your own choices. That's really what it's about. And then also without judgment. So I was Master Sri Arkanshana. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But he named 5 foods. The first one was alcohol. I know I've talked about that before in the group. And there are some that partake in some alcohol once in a while, and that's no big deal. I mean, everyone should be able to indulge whenever they want to. And it's okay to indulge once in a while. I think that the biggest message for the two that I looked up and listened to what they had to say about these foods was that, how often are you doing it? Is there some consistency with it? Or is it something that you're just doing once in a while? And so I think that that is where, where we need to keep our perspective on why we're listening to these things. One of the things about alcohol, as I know, the way that I've described it is that it's like the static that you have with your connection. So it keeps you from connecting to your guides or to higher dimensions. Not always, but for the most part, yes, it does. And I've been also told by some that that would be a reason why they do have a little bit of wine once in a while, is to calm that connection down because they're so highly connected to it all the time. And so, so they're the balance again. The second one that he talked about was caffeine. For myself, I drink decaf coffee and decaf tea, but I do know that there still is some caffeine in it. And it's something that I'm going to consider, changing up to straight up herbal. I do mix my herbal tea with my decaf tea to kind of give it a little bit of flavor or whatever, but then have the kind of the stronger flavor of the black tea in it, but it's still decaf, but yet still decaf has a little bit of caffeine in it. And so the caffeine basically, it's an addictive product that's out there. And it also, of course, it's a stimulant, it's a distraction, again, from the spiritual path. Number 3 was fluoride. Most of us know here already that fluoride through water or toothpaste is something that we may want to think about eliminating from our diet or from our routine, from our practice, because it dims the pineal gland. And so dimming it again, cutting that connection, and that's what all of these different kinds of foods is what they're talking about does. Now, the next two.
Wait, one thing about the fluoride real quick.
Yes.
Is that's a good segue into water filters, because there is fluoride in the municipal water supply generally. So filtering your waters, and that can take you down a whole nother rabbit hole on the good filters and the better filters and the best filters. But at least getting the filter that gets fluoride out is the first step.
Yes, that's exactly right. And
can I say something on that note?
Absolutely.
There's now I checked, unless they've changed it, St. George doesn't have fluoride in their water, but like where my daughter lives, I know they do. And so it's very important, but I think it's more important to get on board with your community and get that taken out. But another thing we have here is, and especially if there's a high population where you live, then there's lots of chlorine in the water, and your skin is the largest organ in your body and it will absorb anything you put on it. So having a filter in your shower is really good too.
Yes, and they even have a bath filter.
A what?
Bathtub water. So when you take a bath, you filter your water there, unless you use your shower head to fill your tub.
Well, yeah, and that'd take a long time.
Yep, I've done it. So, yeah, but
that really is good information for all of us, because sometimes we don't think about that. Anything that we put on our skin is absorbed in the body. And so when you think about that, if you're putting chemicals on your skin, it's the same thing as ingesting it in your mouth. It might not be absorbed as
quickly,
the same extent, but yeah, it's still being absorbed, and it's still a toxin within the body, and your body can react to it. And even if it doesn't react to it, still you need to be mindful of what you're putting in your body, what you're putting on your body, because this is definitely, if you want to treat your body as the spiritual temple that it is, then this is where, thinking about these different kinds of products, whether it's ingesting or putting on the body, is important. So thank you for bringing that out. I appreciate it. The other two foods that were on this list, you might be surprised at, because I think we all love it, and that's garlic and onion. And I know. And so I was just like, what? Because I love garlic and onion. I love the flavor of it. And I like to cook with it, like, pretty regularly. But what this master was saying is that garlic is a powerful medicine. And he wasn't the only one that said it. Also, it was Sanguru.
Sadhguru.
Is that how you say it?
Sadhguru.
Okay, thank you. So he also named garlic and onion as well. And they both said the same thing, that garlic is definitely, well, both of them are definitely a medicinal plant, and that they are good for the body when you need it for medicinal reasons. But if you're eating it or incorporating it into your foods every day or on a regular basis, it is not good for the brain, the third eye, the pineal gland. And so it's something that you may want to try. Try going off of garlic and onion for 30 days and see what happens. Then try it again and see how you feel.
I wouldn't know how to cook. I wouldn't know how to cook.
So
I
spices,
would have a really hard time.
I was going to talk about spices too. So before I get into spices, I'll say one of the things that he talked about, when we cut an onion, and sometimes garlic too, but when we cut an onion, what happens? Our body is telling us through our tears that we don't like it. It's making us cry already when we're cutting a strong onion. And so that was one of the points that he was making.
One
So,
I've also heard with onion, sorry to interrupt,
it's okay.
just that if you really study a little bit more about the rabbit hole of onions, you can cut open an onion and it'll absorb everything around it. So they say not to have an onion sitting out for too long because it can become toxic. And so then also it's used in holistic for, a long time, that the ancestors used it. And you can cut an onion in half and put it on the bottom of your foot and put a sock on, and it'll draw out toxins through your feet.
Yeah.
So that is really truly a medicinal purpose.
I've heard that. I've heard of that, but I don't know anybody who's done it.
I do, and it's been awesome.
It's a real thing and it works. And the
Yep.
thing is that we've been so programmed about the foods and the different things that we have in our life on a regular basis since from the day we were born. And we think, well, it's a plant, it comes from Mother Earth, right? It should be okay, and we can buy it organically, right? It's organically grown, so why can't we eat it? Well, you can eat it, but how does it affect your body on a regular basis, and how does it affect the brain? It does make the pineal gland dimmed. So that was the point that they were making. If you're wanting to get your connection stronger, that's something that you may want to think about reducing in your diet or taking it out altogether. And they did both say that it's just not good for your body on a regular basis. It's definitely a medicinal plant that we should consider. So just the messenger, it's up to everyone what they want to do. Going back to spices. So we were, when I first started out, I said that I wanted to talk about like maybe some of the bad foods or the kinds of foods that maybe we want to stay away from because we want to treat our temple the best that we can. And so one of those toxins, of course, that comes up, the first thing that any of us think about is processed foods. So when we talk about processed foods, I mean, that could be a number of different things. Potato chips. It could be canned meat or a hot dog, the way that they process it and all the different meats and the things that go in it. It can be any boxed food, right? But there are some processed foods that are processed properly and well, and can be organic and good for us, like spices. And that's what we need to use. And we need to learn to use some of those new spices, Belinda. You can do it. I mean, you're such an excellent cook. I can just see you trying all these different new spices and coming up with some great traditional recipes that just have a different flavor than what you're used to, but still taste just as good.
Well, I am trying new stuff. Like, I love Kosh's cooking, and he uses, spices from India, and I love lemongrass, and I have some that I'm going to harvest here soon. And just, I like to cook with lots of spice, and I love fresh. Fresh is so much different than dried, but dried is good. Oh, is okay too. You just it depends on how you use it. So
I feel the same way. If I can use the fresh, that's where I tend to go. But sometimes it's not always easy, especially in the wintertime or when it's out of stock or your garden isn't growing in the moment and you're out. So yeah, no, I feel exactly the same way. So there are some processed foods. What we call that is lightly processed foods are good. I would say
well, they're
organic,
dried. Herbs are dried.
right?
Herbs are dried so that you can store them.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for whoever invented that.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes into eating as seasonal as possible, so that helps the body too.
That's right. Also, eating according to where you live is also something that I have heard that is way good for the body. So wherever you are living in the moment, I guess, whatever is grown naturally in that area are probably the better choices to make for the body, because that's what you acclimate to is the area that you're living in. Have you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Well, just like people used to live by the sea, back when there wasn't 8 billion of us. And so communities always formed along the coast. And so they always fished and they would get things from the sea. And our thyroids are made, they need iodine, which you get from kelp, some sea food, and some salts, but not the white stuff. But I'm just saying is people used to live by the sea and they were healthy because they were getting things from the sea, and so they were getting those minerals that we don't get anymore, because we don't live by the sea. And so that's why it's really important that we get iodine for our thyroids.
Yeah, and speaking of the sea and not being able to get the minerals that we used to get, Celtic salt is something that is very, very good for you, and I would recommend it to for anyone's diet. I absolutely love it. And the first thing the doctors will tell you in the Western world is to eliminate salt from your diet or to reduce it quite a bit. And but then again, if you're eating or using Himalayan salt, which has 70 some different kinds of minerals in it, or Celtic salt that has 80 something minerals in it, is that's very good for you. And so I would recommend that as for sure. Hey Gary.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Come and join us if you like.
He's peeking in.
Just wondering what was going on.
Oh yeah, we're talking about processed foods. Speaking of processed foods, some of the other ones that came up that were high on the list on to stay away from would be like the substitute sugars. Now, I'm not talking about organic plant-based substitutes. I'm talking about like aspartame, or I'm not sure if I can say that. Yeah, and preservatives,
And
pesticides.
sucralose. Sucralose is another. They have like 3 different names, and they're actually a byproduct of nuclear waste.
That's why we need to stay away from it. These products are toxic.
Yes.
And the United States has allowed all of these different chemicals to be added to these processed foods. And we're putting these chemicals in our body, calling it food, and that is not what it is. And so that is where the awareness needs to come out. And what I would say to that is, like anything that you buy in the store, look for organic, number one. And you can find a lot of organic that's canned, boxed, fresh, dried. It doesn't matter. But then also read the labels. Read the labels, because they do have to list what exactly is in the product. And that would go also to what we put on our bodies: shampoos, conditioners, lotions, creams, oils. The list is infinite, right? And so I would just encourage, each of us to kind of look at that. Now, as far as some natural products that may not be so good for us as well, would be sugar. Sugar is a toxin. And many times we think, well, it can't be a toxin. It's from Mother Earth. We grow it, the sugar cane, we get the sugar, but the sugar converts into our bodies, it converts into fat. And the fat that grows in our body was going to affect the organs. It affects a lot of things. And I mean, the whole list can go on. But I did want to mention that another processed food would be margarine, something I grew up on. When I talked to my mom about this years ago, I went for a visit when I was 17 years old up to Minnesota, and my future mother-in-law at the time only used butter. And I tried butter for the first time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I'm never eating margarine again. And I went back and I talked to my mom, and and then after you start researching a little bit and you start reading about it, and she's like, I never knew, they tell you it's better for you, margarine's better than butter, and you just listen to what you're being told and what the programming is, and it's what you feed your children. And I'm just telling you, and anybody that listens to this, please read your labels, do your research. There's plenty of videos out there that can explain these things a lot better than I can, or that any of us can, because it's real, and it does affect the body, and it affects the brain. It affects the connection, our spirituality. Many of the things that happen to us causes a distraction. When we have dis-ease, when we have inflammation, pain, these things are distractions. When we are feeling pain, and that's like, if we're feeling pain and it's right there, and like all you can think about is the pain that you're feeling, I can't do anything else, I just need to sit down, there's not anywhere else what else you can do, because you're being distracted by that pain. And so some of these things that we take within the body or put on the body can cause these inflammations. And that's why I would encourage to do your research on that. Some of the other things that were talked about was dairy is also something that's really harsh on the body. I know from my own son, he had to give up dairy many years ago, and he did it because it made his body feel better. He did so much better when he went off the dairy. And so that's, again, being in tune with your own body, knowing what works for you. And I'm not saying it's right for everybody. You have to make your own choice on that.
One thing,
Okay, I
Sherry,
want to say something about, go ahead. Go ahead, Barry.
mine is real quick, just about margarine, that it's 2 steps in the process before it's plastic.
Gross.
Hydrogenated oil, that's what it is.
And yeah, and if you just keep going in the process, it's not too much longer and it will be plastic.
It's heated up to a temperature for the shelf life that is no longer digestible, and it's not a food anymore. But I wanted to say something too, is when you're reading labels, that's what you want to look for, is hydrogenated oils of any kind. Even you can take a good oil and heat it up and it can be bad. It turns bad. So it's best not to heat them up. But
So
I wanted to say something too. Maybe we'll just talk later about it after you get done with your list. Is dairy causes mucus in the body. And what happens when the body is sick? You form mucus because that's your body's way of gathering up all the bacteria and the germs that it's trying to get rid of, and then so it can push it out of the body. But that's what dairy does is it causes mucus and inflammation in the body. But I think maybe it's a subject for another show, is how do we recognize these things when we read labels? Because they hide,
Oh,
they
yeah.
have secret names for things.
And then as soon as those names are known, they create new ones.
They
Like-
do. And so we have to stay up on it.
Mhm.
And there's a really cool, I just discovered it the other day on Facebook. There's a group that's the tattletale for the industry that is putting bioengineered foods and stuff in our food. And it didn't used to be there, but now it's there because, whatever, they got bought by a shadow company. But yeah, I just thought that was great. And so they're tattling on the big companies, and I love it.
is that their name, Belinda? Can anybody find them on Facebook?
Yes, it's a group. Let me just look it up. It's got a kind of a long name. It's on Facebook. Let me see if it's on one of my groups. And search.
And Sherry, I have a list of avoid or eliminates that will match, that will go, I'll share after you're done with your list.
Oh, you guys, you just go ahead and talk away as we go. I'm so open to hear everything that's supposed to be a conversation. I just wanted to get it started, so I'm really glad that you guys are coming back with some of this stuff. I want to hear it.
Okay, this is called Bioengineered Food Awareness. And I just joined it day and a half ago. And so I went on there and I just kind of scroll a little bit, and they've got posts of some foods that people maybe they buy traditionally and they're just used to eating, and that they don't have bioengineered ingredients. Because it's like we all have days where we're busy and we don't want to cook.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this modern world, is we have stuff like that. And but they're showing the label, the actual label on the product, taking a picture of it, and it's all mostly photo shots. And that's what they ask you to do when you join the group. So I think that's great, and I plan on participating in that because, I want to say, give an example. Tom's of Maine, he makes a lot of hygienic products, toothpaste and deodorant. Well, they got bought out by a bad company, Procter and Gamble, I think, and they started putting aluminum in their deodorant and other things too, like SLS is another one that they didn't used to be in toothpaste. It's not all natural if they put that in there, and that's a foaming agent, and it is a hormone endocrine disruptor. I mean, it does so much harm to the body. And they put it in everything that's they want it to foam up.
This is why we have to read the labels on a regular basis, because the same
Everything. And you just because you've been using it for 10 years doesn't mean that it doesn't have something weird in it now.
Or that they didn't get sold off to somebody and they're not the same integrity.
That's what I'm saying. That's what happened to Tom's, and that's what happened to Annie's. Annie's used to do stuff, and they got bought out by General Mills, and they put dyes in the macaroni and cheese for kids now.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. They changed the label just a little bit, or the branding just slightly, just enough. I'm like, what is going on here? So I examined it, read the label, and And sure enough, it was fluoride or something in it that I was just like, this is not resonating with me. It wasn't fluoride, it was something else. But I knew that they had changed it up enough, and it was just like, it was something in there that I didn't resonate with. And I just put it back up, and then I had to start shopping again and figure out which one was right for me. So that's why it's important to read the labels on a regular basis. That's exactly right. And thank you for sharing the Facebook page too, because awareness is something that we have to all think about. That this is what we need. We need this awareness. We need to be able to have the awareness so that we know what we're putting into our body. We want to treat our body as respectfully as we can. And if we are all in the if we're all on the basic same spiritual path, and we want that connectedness, then these are some of the things that maybe we want to think about incorporating into our own lives.
Yes. This is reminding me. So in the year 2000, I studied to be a natural health consultant from my grandmother. I'm adopted. When I met her, she's a naturopathic doctor. And she said, Lorena, you need to just trust me. And I didn't know anything about the holistic world at that point. And she said, you just need to trust me. It's going to cost you, close to $2,000 to get this certification. And, but it's going to change your life. And it's the best way to immerse yourself into this field, this world that you need to know about. And I was really hesitant. That was a lot of money for me. But I just had the gut feeling I need to go. So I bought that and I went, and it was a full 7 days, 8 hours a day, sometimes more, of just immersion into this course to get certified. And I'll tell you something, I went home several times and I said to myself, I can't drink the water. I can't breathe the air. I can't eat the food. And I got so discouraged. And then even just the idea of everything that it's going to take to be able to be well is going to cost a lot of money. It's a lot of, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it was a lot of stress. And I remember feeling that overwhelm. And then at the same time, and you know how synergy works sometimes, where you'll be tuned into one thing and then something else will show up and it's the perfect match. So spiritually, I had also learned that stress is more harmful to the body than sometimes the substance itself.
Mhm.
So, or the, whatever it is that I'm trying to not be overwhelmed with, or that I'm worried about, that stress can actually be more harmful than that item. So I just wanted to throw that in there, is that just being mindful of, I actually coined the phrase years ago. Actually, that was the window and the time period that I said, do your best and bless the rest, and know that you have source power within you, and that, you can just do your best and bless the rest.
I
I
love
love
that.
that. I love that because, sometimes we go over to dinner to someone else's house and they don't eat the same way we do. Or, like we have the potluck, and I try to cook and respect everybody I can, but sometimes I just want to make what I want, and so you can just bless it. And instead of stressing out about it, that, oh my gosh, isn't this and isn't that, or where did you get that from? No, I think we can just be respectful, and it's not something you're eating every day 24/7. So
Well, and it can be an overwhelming thing to just be like, you know what, I'm going to do perfectly at my label reading. These are all the list of things I'm not going to do. And then you start to get discouraged because, like, well, I really, that's a lot. So if you just shoot for even 80%, and just give yourself a little bit of leeway, so you're not in that stress and that you can still enjoy life and you're not worried.
Yeah, and like we said in the beginning too, don't judge yourself or others, right? Or the foods that they prepare that you prepared, or I should have, this, or I should have that, right? You don't want to should it yourself. So, or how, I'm not sure exactly how you say that.
Well, I'll have to, I just speaking on what Lorena was talking about, and talking about how when you initially get started into this path, there's so much information that you could go. And so it's really important. I think it's important to do what you, as you said, do what you can, take it one step at a time, improve just a few things, and eventually you'll get there. Because I remember when I started on this, I was 18, wasn't feeling well, was trying to figure out everything. And the stomach doctor I was going to is like, oh, just go to figure out what's wrong. We'll have to go on an elimination diet. And I get like a list of like 6 things. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not going to be too hard. Well, realizing that was harder than I thought because one of the products was, for example, corn. And if you do label reading, you realize corn is in everything. And I'm going through this and I thought the same thought process. I can't eat anything, nothing. We look at everything in our house, everything's eliminated in our house, everything. And at that point, when I started this, I was like, you guys see me. I'm pretty skinny as it is. I was 154 at 6'2". So skinny as a rail. Went through that process for 2 days of eating nothing and went down to 143 for 6'2", because that was it. I was so stressed out about everything and so overwhelmed with everything going on, and realizing and being like, okay, let me start somewhere. And it's the same thing. There's a list of so many things you can do. And it's like, just pick one thing to improve on each day. It could be adding a fruit. It could be, and not stress, eliminating one thing or eliminating one byproduct and eventually going to it. Don't completely overwhelm yourself, but taking it slow, but as Lorraine was saying, enjoying the process as you do it.
Yeah, that's exactly a good leeway into what I had in my notes. That's exactly it, Chris. Just, one step at a time in anything that we do in life, right? And if if you're thinking about changing up your diet, or you want to make some different choices, take it easy. Do a little bit at a time, like you said, one step at a time. Don't just go full bore. This is, you eliminate everything out of your diet, meat and dairy and alcohol and all this other stuff, and then you're just straight vegan. You're eating nothing but just vegan, and or raw foods or something like that. That's going to wreak havoc on your body as well. And the stress, like you said, both of you said, can be more harm to your body than the food itself, or what you're taking in. So balance. I think that's what we need to do, is we just need to balance it out. We need to think about it. We need to consider our body as our temple, and just start making good choices for ourselves, or better choices, or stick with the choices that we've already made, because a lot of us are eating the way that we need to. And sometimes we get off a little bit. Sometimes we do have that little bit of indulgence, and we do partake in something that isn't on the regular diet. It's okay. Don't judge yourself. It's, it's not a big deal.
That's really good, because the holidays are upon us. And we're going to be expanding our wastes and our our plates or whatever. There's just going to be more to eat out there that we don't normally eat. But I'll tell you how I did it was, when I first learned about reading labels, I just pick one thing and memorize what it, I would write it down. I wanted to learn how to spell it. I wanted to learn what it did to the body. And my first one was MSG, monosodium glutamate. And that one was, they used to put it on there. People didn't know what it was, but then when the public started catching on, then they started calling it something else, like caramel coloring or natural flavoring, or it has like 6 or 7 different names now. And so I just learned one thing for the week. And then if there was something I was reading that I didn't know what it was, after I, started rolling, because you'll get on a roll, because you'll go, oh my gosh, I don't know what that is. But it could just be that it's, the flower name for something, the botanical name. but it's a good thing. It's just aloe vera, you know, and but then you'll like, I don't know what that is, but usually if you can't pronounce it, it's not that good.
But you
So-
make a good point, because those botanical herbs sometimes sound like a chemical. And so I learned the hard way, oh, put this into Google and see. And then I'm like, oh, good. Phew, that's actually a healthy thing. And so it's not going to be an overnight process. It takes, this whole thing is going to take time. And I like how you were talking about how if you go cold turkey on everything that you're used to, your body will respond negatively. It's just like going off drugs and your body goes into, well, they call it Herxheimer. And it's what that means is you're just going through a reverse healing crisis and you're purging a bunch of toxins all at once, and it can make you sick. And, everybody has their unique things like sensitivities to different foods, dairy, meat, whatever it is. So just taking it easy and doing your best with that. And I would definitely say starting with the most important ones, like the artificial sweeteners and the high fructose corn syrup and the MSG, and doing what you can there and filtering your water. Those are the kind of the basics.
Right. And fried foods, add that to the list too, because they fry it all in vegetable oil. And again, the vegetable oil is
Well, they're using bad oils. They're using really bad oils to begin with. They're bad oils.
right. So the good oils would be like coconut oil or olive oil or extra virgin olive oil. Those would be the good oils that you.
But we're not going to heat those to high temperatures.
Yeah, the only oil that you can heat is avocado.
But you don't want to heat any of them high temperature. You can still use good oils. Like I'll use coconut. I just cook with coconut oil, but I'll make homemade French fries once in a while. We like them.
And that's when it says, like on the avocado oil, that's the one that's more for high heat than the other.
Well, it has a higher smoke point,
Yeah.
and that's why. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, you just but the thing is when you're making that transition, if this is something you want to do to change your life, do not guilt yourself. That's worse.
Yeah.
That's
than
exactly
eating
it. Yeah, no
all the
judgment.
bad stuff. That's worse because your body is adaptive, and it's just like I used to cook with the microwave all the time. I don't have a microwave in my house anymore.
Yeah.
I won't use them. But none of me and my kids, we don't have cancer, but I guess I stopped in time. So, it's whatever your mind creates things too. So
Right.
you got to remember that.
I'd like to go back to what you said earlier too, Belinda, about, blessing the food. That is something that with our own spiritual enlightenment, our awakening, our connection, whatever it is that you want to call it. And as our thoughts are turned towards spirituality, our focus is there, and we are starting to make these changes in our life or continue with the changes or just keeping up with the changes, to do the best that we can for our body. Blessing the food, healing the food it's a big deal. We know that everything has consciousness. And while we are growing these foods, the broccoli and the, whatever, coming out of the ground, spinach, cucumbers, bell peppers, whatever, the vegetables, the fruit, it doesn't matter what it is, everything coming out. It's live consciousness. We're eating those live foods. And even though we cut them off out of the ground and then we consume them, we still want to give gratitude for that food. And, for me, that the gratitude that I give is not just for the food, but also for the sun, fire, energy, for the air and the water and the earth herself. So the 4 elements, right, of life-giving energy that produces this food for us and for our bodies. And because we are also made of earth and made up of all those minerals, we're very closely related to these plants. And so by giving the gratitude, the blessing, and the healing to the food that is coming through, it is a big deal. Our words, our intention make a huge difference in everything that we do. And it does, especially with food as well. And I know that you mentioned that, Belinda, earlier about, just bless the food and it'll be okay. And that's just it. We need to say the words, whether we say it to ourselves or we say it out loud, it doesn't matter. But as long as we have that intention and that is what we're bringing forth, it will make a huge difference. How it goes into the body, how it affects the body, what it does to the body. And so that's something that I really definitely wanted to mention. That
I also say, sorry, I also say bless the hands that prep the food and the
Yes,
farmers.
yes,
I think of the whole journey, like anyone and everyone that's involved in, and so I loved how you connected the earth. And then I just imagine, and energy wants to be commanded and thanked, and there gets to be that gratitude. And I'm glad that we're close to Thanksgiving, because this is the perfect time to really be in that gratitude for all that the earth provides and our connection to it. But we don't, nowadays nobody really has their own farm and their own garden, and so just being so thankful for those who are involved, who help us get that food to us,
right.
including the truckers and everyone, the whole journey.
yes, everyone at every hand that touched that food. And what it all boils down to for me is it all comes down to gratitude. And when we're in a place of gratitude, that's when magic happens.
Mhm.
That's right. And it's also too, when we're in gratitude, we're also in gratitude of our own body that's hosting us, right? And we want to do the best that we can to take care of that body and to extend the life of that body as much as possible, so that we're in not only in service to ourselves for our highest good, but also in service to others for the collective good, right? And so how can we do that if we don't have self-love? We've talked about self-love in past videos. You have to have self-love. It's a conscious decision. It's what was the word I had on here? It was I can't find it. It requires discipline, and so, and along with that, though, it's okay if we do the indulgences. It's okay if we go off a little bit here or there, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, as long as we have that gratitude and we stay on the path, and that's where we're heading, right? We just keep heading down that same goodness of a path. And so I just wanted to mention that. Before it gets too much later, I did want to talk a little bit about let me just say a couple things. So one of the things that were about food, and then I'm going to move on to movement, where, as we want, if we are moving out of some of the foods that we've had in our diet, like we said, doing that gradually, decreasing it, maybe not taking it away all the way, right away. But some of the things, the processed carbohydrates, start decreasing that and see how it feels. See what the difference is. If you eliminate it altogether, see what the difference is. Try it again, see what happens. Your body's going to talk to you, and you're going to be more in tune with your body. And that's really where we need to be, is just in tune with our own bodies, know what kinds of foods resonate with us, and to treat it with the highest and best respect that we can. Helps our energy center. It helps us meditate better. And it says, you got to live life. French fries once in a while, some chocolate cake once in a while. It's okay. So on movement, of course, so exercise was part of it too, in the spiritual life. Something that, diet and exercise, it's always a harder subject to talk about, because we don't always, make the best choices for ourselves. But that's what we're here on. We're here to try to improve our lives in any way we can, or just to continue on the same path that we've already started. And so with movement, I found this guy on YouTube that was being interviewed, His name was Rafe Kelly of Evolve, Move, and Play. And he was talking a lot about different kinds of movement, and he's been doing it a long time and does retreats. And basically what he was talking about, that the purpose of movement, the movement practice, is to unlock more meaningful life experiences. So being connected to nature. So before I get too far into that, I really don't have a lot to say about it, but it'll start the conversation anyway. He said there's 4 fundamental forms or 4 pillars of practice to having this more meaningful life experiences. And the first one was movement. I remember in our group here probably a month and a half ago, one of the things that we asked, we were talking about community. You know, what is one of the best things that you can bring to community? And I was asked the question straight out, and I answered movement. Movement is so important. And so yesterday we went and some of us in our group met, and we had some music that was being played, and we were standing up and we're dancing a little bit in place, and we're just having a little bit of a rock of the body, and it felt good. Movement feels good. And so anyway, let me tell you about the 4 pillars. One was movement. Second was mindfulness. The third one was nature connection, so connecting with nature. And the 4th is community. And that is right where we are all at, I think, and things that we've been talking about all along for the last, probably a couple of years or so, that we've been all together. And so movement can be going to the gym. It can be doing yoga in your living room. It can be doing Tai Chi with Belinda on a Sunday at her clubhouse, which was wonderful. It was amazing. And we, all of us, I think most of us, had some sort of an experience when we were in this movement activity, right? And we were doing that as a community together, and it was beautiful. And
You were doing all the pillars at one time.
We were, exactly. And so Lorena and I, we've gone hiking together, and it felt great. We went and did the hike, and we went right up on top of the mountain, and we stayed there for just a little bit, catch our breath, and we came back down the mountain. And after we got done, it felt really good. And bicycling can be another one where you're out in nature and you're getting some fresh air, you're getting some movement in. It's just moving the body. No matter what the activity is, it doesn't matter as long as we're moving the body. And there are probably some exercises that may be better for our physical fitness than others. I don't know, but for the mental, for the emotional, for the spiritual body, because these are all the different bodies that we have together in one that we need to consider when we are thinking about movement.
And they're all connected. We just can't see some of them. Can you tell me the 4 pillars again? Because I really like that. We got movement, mindfulness, community, and what was the other?
So the third one was connecting with nature.
Nature, yes, very important. Okay. So getting grounded.
Getting grounded, yes. Very, very important.
Can I say something about movement that I think
Sure.
is going to really make everybody think about how important it is to move? And I realized I took it all for granted when I got hurt and I couldn't move, and I gained a lot of weight, and I'm just, it snowballed, from there. And, but your heart, okay, your whole body system, your heart has a pump and it pumps your blood. So it keeps that moving and keeps it clean, goes through all the filters of the organs of the body. Your lymphatic system does not have a pump. You have to move. And that's how the body can clean itself and move all the toxins and clean itself, is through movement. And so people who are sedentary are not healthy. So that's why it's important to move. Other than sometimes it's just fun.
Yeah,
Like dancing. Dancing is fun.
Dancing is very good, and very, very much. I think that, we should have some sort of movement every time we meet together, just because it, and we're having some spiritual experiences. We're doing this movement. We're not even thinking that we're going to have any kind of experience like that. And yet it happens naturally because it's just meant to be. One of the other things I know, Michelle, she did Kundalini yoga, and I was kind of interested to find out how that went. I know she texted me and said that it was wonderful, and I've never done Kundalini yoga, but I have heard from someone else on the call that it was a little bit much for them. Are you there, Michelle? I want to try Kundalini yoga at least once. I was doing yoga for a number of years, and then I quit, and I would really like to get back into it again. It always made me feel good. It's a nice strengthening movement, but it's also it's not a real big movement though either. The Tai Chi though, that was amazing. Just the stepping and the moving and the bending, and I really loved that a lot. And so, Two Ravens, you were doing some hiking there quite a bit over the summer.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can.
My thoughts on Kundalini, don't start with Kundalini. But I did that with Tika, and wow, I hurt for a week. But she pushes pretty hard. It's a whole different program. Yeah, my practice was a lot of hiking, biking, and so how I rehab myself after my procedure, I would go to the river and get 5-gallon buckets and fill it with rocks and walk up the river. And that seemed to rehab me pretty fast. But that's pretty extreme. But it doesn't really have to be that much. I walked down to take a picture of the sunset tonight, and it's gorgeous. So sometimes you just start with a walk.
Walking is really, it's very fulfilling for me. I love just to walk in nature. The trail system here is beautiful, wonderful. A lot of it's near the river, the Virgin River, and it's an amazing, exhilarating time to be out there with all the trees and the nature and the bunny rabbits and the lizards and anything else that tends to show up out there. I absolutely love it. And so, yeah, so the Kundalini yoga, maybe not start with that, huh? Maybe just go a little bit slower, or maybe just not push yourself as hard as the instructor is like, you can do it.
I talked to Michelle after she got finished with her class, and she had an amazing experience with it. And she saw her third eye, which that's something I really look forward to being able to do. So I told her I want to go with you to the next one.
So there again, we're talking about having a spiritual experience during movement, showing you that movement, nutrition, spirituality is a whole. It's not just this or that or 2 out of the 3, but it's the whole thing. Because that through food and taking care of ourselves and our health, through the movement, it's all part of our spirituality. I love that. I did not hear that about her third eye. That's really amazing.
Well, and even the way that your breath works is when you breathe, it's contracting and expanding. And that's a microcosm, macrocosm to life itself. And as you're moving and whatever you're doing, breath is a part of that breath is life. And so that's a topic for another day. But the way you breathe really can help you to eliminate toxins, which can help you when you're not eating pure. So breath is also another component. You know, and just the way that your body eliminates and understanding the body better is another topic for another day. So that's always good too.
Yeah, I would love to have a topic on breathing exercises or breathing practice. That's something that I've been very much interested in. I have done some, but not a lot. And I would like to get more and more into that. And I know that there are plenty of different types of exercises and practices that are out there that can be shared for all of us to take advantage of. I also wanted to just mention there is a book. I have not read it, but I did read the information on the book in regards to how the diet and exercise integrate into the spirituality. And it's called Neurosculpting by Lisa Wimberger. I don't know if anybody has heard that or not. So it's Neurosculpting by Lisa Wimberger. Wim, W-I-M-B-E-R-G-E-R. And it says, integrating lifestyle, diet, exercise, and spiritual practice to create the ideal environment for healing and happiness. So that's just part of the book. I think that there's a lot more in the book that's can be, you know, incorporated in one's life. But this piece of it is what really resonated with me when it came to the diet, the exercise, and the spirituality. So it's definitely on my list to get and to read. And so I just wanted to mention that.
And then there's a book, since I did have a kind of a list, but instead of going through the list of what to eliminate or avoid, I would just go with, there's a book called Natural Cures That They Don't Want You to Know About by Kevin Trudeau. And he will give you the list and explain why. So instead of me just going through the list, there's the resource.
It's
Great.
not that same guy from Canada, is it?
No,
Okay, good.
not even a relation, thankfully. Not to be, I'm not judging, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So I'm really glad that we had this conversation. It is good timing because of Thanksgiving, like you said, and giving the gratitude for all that we have, especially for all of you and for participating in all these different discussions and conversations that we have. I just can't tell you how much it means to me and how much it helps me to grow as well. Not only is it Thanksgiving, but we also had the 1111 portal that just opened up a corridor. And while we are all working on our individual sovereignty and health and spirituality and in our own path, I would also like to just mention that the angels are there. They are ready. There's legions of angels. This is many, 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 many angels, legions of angels that are ready to come through that portal. Getting tingles.
Goosebumps. Woo!
And so when we talked about, you know, our intention, giving gratitude and blessings, and in the beginning, I always ask for our angels and our guides and our ancestors to come in and to help us through this transmission. I would just like to mention that the angels are there and they're waiting for us to talk to them, to pray to them, to reach out to them in whatever form that may look to you yourself. But they are here and they're ready, and the portal is for them, for us. And we are in the final battle, basically, of the end of an era and the beginning of the golden age era, the new age. And it is a beautiful, wonderful time for us to have an amazing amount of gratitude for all of them and for all of our guides, for our ancestors, for all of us coming together, including all of you beautiful souls that are here tonight with me and having this conversation. So I just wanted to mention that. And so if you feel compelled to reach out to them in prayer or in gratitude tonight, they are going to hear you, and they are waiting to hear you ask for them to come through, because they're ready. Now is the time. This is it. So just wanted to end on that note, unless there's anything anybody else wants to say.
Well, I think on that note is remembering to ask and talk to them, because of the planet being in free will, that, they're just right there ready, but it really does take us remembering to ask and being open to that communication and feeling that calling to just say, okay, I'm going to ask and get out of our ego and out of our pride and just remember to ask and talk to them.
And to be in our knowingness too, right? We know it deep down inside, and whether we've experienced it or not, no, if you know it and you believe it, it's going to happen. It's going to come through. And like you said, Lorena, you just have to ask. So thank
That's
you.
the key. We have to ask first.
We do.
You have to ask. They want to give us, they want to be with us, they want to help us, but we have to ask for the help first. That's key.
It
Yeah.
is key.
2 ravens.
I
Chris,
just
it was
wanna
good
say-
to see you.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank
I was
you.
just gonna thank you as my spiritual friends, and a deep bow. Thank
Deep
you.
bow to you, to Ravens, to Chris, Michelle, Belinda,
Thank you.
and Bonnie for all being here tonight. And Gary, thank you. We
Good
love
night,
you all.
everybody.
Love and light, healing and out to all of you. And so we'll see you on the next one.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Yay! Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.